Okay, welcome everybody. Today we will talk about the second book of Esdras. So Second Esdras is a more apocalyptic, complex work. Apocalyptic in the sense that it talks about the end times. It's likely a book that was written later on, around the late first century in the Common Era. And it's not directly connected to the contents of the first book of Esdras. However, it is attributed to Esdras. Okay? It is attributed to Esdras, and it focuses on divine justice, human suffering, and hope in the end times or the last days. Okay? When we say it's not directly connected to First Esdras, we're talking about the content. If you read the stories in the first book of Esdras, you might see there's a disconnect. Like it's totally two different books by two different people. Okay. But like I said, it's attributed to Ezra. That means there isn't evidence that he wrote it, but of course, the content shows that he's the main character that wrote it. Now, like I said, it talks about or focuses on divine justice. It focuses on human suffering and as well as hope in the end times. In terms of structure, Second Esdras consists of 16 chapters. I would say the core are the 3rd to the 14th chapters, being mainly apocalyptic or end time texts. Now, in some versions, chapter 1 and 2, as well as chapter 15 and 16, some versions of this book of Second Esdras, chapter 1 and 2 are called Fifth Ezra. And chapter 15 and 16 are called Sixth Ezra. Right? Some people, scholars or whoever you want to call them, contend that chapters 1 and 2 and 15 and 16 are additions, and they point a finger at some religious traditions for adding those chapter 1 and 2 and chapter 15 and 16. That being said, we have it, we've read it, let's see what it talks about. Okay? So, when we get into the book of Second Esdras, chapters 1 and 2, we see a lament. God reminds Ezra what he has done, what Tatanzambi has done for Isolele since the days of Moses, and how Isolele has forgotten him. Tatanzambi says he will turn himself to other nations and give his name to them, so that those nations can keep his statutes. Tatanzambi reminds Ezra of the prophets and the commandments given to Isolele throughout the years, and the way Isolele did not listen, and what they did instead to those prophets, many of whom they killed. Then Tatanzambi curses Isolele. He curses them to be scattered abroad, to be confused, and even to be without posterity for some of them. And he tells them that he will take his glory back from them. Ezra also receives a command on Mount Horeb, and he relays it to Isolele. And the command is for them to look for their shepherd. In those first two chapters, also, we see that Ezra, I believe it's in a vision, goes to Mount Zion, and he sees a multitude of people. These are people who have gone, people who've died, as we learn from the text. And they're praising Tatanzambi. And he also sees the Son of God on Mount Zion. And he asks the angel, who is that? And he's told that is the Son of God. Now, when we go to the first vision, this is chapters 3 through 5, we see the first vision. Now Ezra is going to receive a total of 7 visions from the angel Uriel. In the first vision, Ezra asks why Isolele is oppressed. And the angel explains that Tatanzambi's ways are mysterious and our human understanding is limited. But Ezra keeps lamenting, keeps saying, we are the chosen ones. How come they have it good? Don't you have any one of us who is, doing good? Can you flip the script, so to speak? He's asking for that. But anyway, going on in the second vision, this is in chapter 5 through 6, Ezra questions the fate of the righteous, of Isolele, who are keeping the commandments. What happens when they die? And Uriel describes the signs of the end times and the coming judgment. We'll get into it in the discussion, but I found it very interesting that, after people die, Ezra was asking, so what happens when we die? Are those who are not righteous, do they go straight, like on a fast lane, into the place of torment? And he's given an explanation which basically tells him yes, you know, and they can see what is going on the good side, you know, but their judgment has not yet begun. They're just in a place of torment as they see the righteous in the other section. I call it the non-smoking section. Um, and they are in the smoking section and they're facing torment and they already know what their judgment is going to be. It's not going to be good. All right. Going on to the third vision, Ezra asks about the timing of the end. He's like, when? When is this going to happen? I like the way he was asking these questions, very direct. And Uriel reveals that only a few will be saved. And Tata Nzambi's judgment is close. It's coming. It's imminent. There's a lot of back and forth in that chapter or in those chapters, where Uriel gives clarity with, proverbs or parables, and basically he explains that many are created over time, but few will be saved. And the Most High created two groups of people: those who will be rather the Most High will create two, let's call it, environments. There's this earth and this place we live, but there'll be another one, the new one to come, and in the new one to come, it's only for those few. Okay, let's go to the fifth one. Oh, sorry, the fourth one. In the fourth vision, this is covering chapters 9 through 10, towards the end of 10. Ezra sees a grieving woman. This woman had not had a child, a son for a long, in fact, a child for a long time. And she'd been pleading with the Most High, and she got a son. And now Ezra sees this woman. She's grieving because her son died. In fact, I think the son died on the wedding night or wedding day, And this woman symbolizes Zion, according to the text. And this woman, if you read the story, is transformed into a glorious city. In fact, she appeared to Ezra in a field where he had been told, go to this field. She couldn't appear and get converted into a city in the other places where Ezra was. So the Most High told Ezra, go to this field. And the woman appears there and they have a conversation because she is mourning and Ezra is trying to console her and trying to tell her, think of other things. You should be mourning for the whole of Isolele because we as a people are being rejected by the Most High, not just mourning for your son. And then, boom, something happens. She disappears and is replaced by a city, which is Zion. And that represents the hope for Jerusalem's restoration. Man, I was reading this, I was like, is this a movie? Yeah, it's a vision. It's one of the visions he got, which is the fourth vision. So now let's talk about the fifth vision. In the fifth vision, there's an eagle, and it's a really weird eagle. I think it has three heads, and it transforms at different times. It has 8 wings, you know. But this eagle is judged by a lion. you know in studying this, I've come across some texts that say, people think the eagle symbolizes Rome and the Roman Empire. Others think it represents the US because their symbol is the eagle. And so when it talks about the 8 kings, I'd be interested in the discussion to find out, who do you think are those 8 kings? Because that happens in the end times, and some of them will pass away, will die, and some of them will die later, and some of them will not die at the time the of the judge, not the judgment, but at the last towards the last moments of the end times, before there's a new heaven and a new earth. There will be two of them who will be alive, two past kings of this nation that is represented by the eagle. Who are those? But anyway, this vision of the eagle being judged by a lion, it's a foretelling, it's a prophecy of the fall of empires, all right, who are being judged by the Messiah, by Kuswa Kongo. That's who the lion represents. And then we have the sixth vision, and there's a man who comes from the sea. And this man defeats enemies and gathers the righteous. And this whole episode, this whole vision symbolizes divine victory. Okay? It was very interesting. Ezra even asks, why did this guy come from the sea? you know, and very good explanation was given to him by Uriel concerning deep matters like the deep sea, and that he was being shown something that was very deep, and it was only to him that these things would be revealed, or being revealed to Ezra. So he was very privileged. And the man coming from the sea was Kuswa Kongo, was Isaiah. The seventh vision, Ezra is inspired very much by Tatanzambi. And he's asking more and more questions. And now he's told, you know what? Go pick up these 5 guys, come back here, and we're going to stay here for 40 days. By the way, he had been fasting for like 7 days, then he fasted for another 7 days in the previous 6 visions. Now, by the time of the seventh vision, he's told, go take a break, go talk to the people in the city, but tell them you got to come back. And so he comes back, and he's told to come back with 5 scribes. And he is given a serious download by Tatanzambi. And so what does he do? He writes or rewrites scriptures that were lost during the exile. He produces a total of 94 books. 24 of those are supposed to be public. The other 70 are supposed to be secret books, only for the wise. I wonder which ones are the 70, and I wonder where they are. Now, chapter 15 and 16 is mostly talking about warnings of divine judgment and also encouragement for the faithful to endure persecution. I found it very interesting that there's a period that is described where some people are dead and some people have been left behind, and the ones who've left behind are a mix of righteous and unrighteous. And those who are righteous are being encouraged that despite the tribulations and trials and torment or whatever is going on, not torment, during that time, endure, endure the persecution, but remain faithful because you're being left for a purpose. I could not help but think we are already there. Who knows? Okay, so that's it for today. Now let's get into some discussion. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I have some conclusions. My bad. I think I skipped. I forgot I had a slide here. Yep. I have just one more slide for a conclusion. So there's this topic called, in conclusion, this is what the book is talking about. Why does God allow evil? You know, this topic in seminary school, for those of you who dropped out of seminary school like myself, it's called theodicy. People ask this all the time. Why does God allow evil? And this book is also talking about, like I said, end time prophecies, but mostly hope, you know. Um, and we've talked about the way it's talking about divine judgment, that yes, when we die, this is what will happen. Some people will go to the smoking section, others to the non-smoking section. And then it talks about the Messiah's role. He would be sent back. He's already been sent back, I think. And it talks about his role in bringing or gathering Isolele back. All right, thank you. Let's now get into some discussion.